We created our organization because we realized that Haitians weren't poor because they weren't hardworking or because they were unlucky. We realized that they were poor because they were not able to enforce their basic rights, the rights they need to earn their way out of poverty, like labor rights or employment rights or contract rights, the rights they need to learn their way out of poverty, like education rights, and the rights to vote their way out of poverty, basic civil and political rights. And we felt that it was necessary to fight for those rights both in Haiti and in the United States. And so we started the BAI as a way of working with Haitians and within the Haitian system to enforce the rights so people could get an education, so they could have contracts, they could start businesses, they could have good jobs. And also we started IJDH in the United States that would bring the fight to the international community, where a lot of decisions are made that have an impact on Haitians' rights, and those include trade policies, those include political policies towards the Haitian governments, and even aid policies make a difference in how Haitians' rights are enforced. Our current objective is to make Haiti's justice system work for poor people. And the way we're doing it is through cases in Haiti that help individuals but also have a system-wide impact. And we also work outside of Haiti, where decisions about Haitians' rights are made in New York, in Washington, in Ottawa, London, and Paris. We try to make sustainable change. And the way we make our change sustainable is, first of all, we empower Haitians to enforce their own rights. So we don't just represent them in court. We train people to advocate in the streets, in courts, in the press, and so that they can, for the rest of their lives, have the capacity to transform their system to make it more just. The second way we make it sustainable is that we train Haitian lawyers. We're creating the next generation of Haitian public interest lawyers, so they will be able to carry this fight on throughout their whole careers. The main leverage we use to make our organization successful is collaboration. And we have collaborations with people in Haiti and outside of Haiti. The collaborations within Haiti, they empower Haitians to enforce their own human rights. So we work with grassroots organizations and that have great capacities, but they need a little bit of legal training and a little bit of help to be able to get their message across. When we work with organizations outside of Haiti, those organizations often have capacity to have an impact. They can impact discussions in the U.S. Congress. They can reach the press. They have mailing lists of tens of thousands of people. And what we do is we provide the guidance and the Haiti knowledge they need to use their capacities to advance justice for the Haitian people. We're effective for two main reasons. The first reason is that we combine advocacy in Haiti and outside of Haiti. So we address the problems in Haiti, but often some of their roots that are traced back to the United States and Europe and other countries. The second reason why we're effective is that we combine four types of advocacy. We do courtroom work, we file cases, but we do more than that. We also do public advocacy, so we're fighting our cases in the streets and the press and in Congress if we need to. We also do capacity building, where we improve Haitians' abilities to enforce their own rights. And last, we do information dissemination. We get important information out to advocates and decision makers so that they can do their work. One illustration of how this works is our rape cases. We bring cases before the courts and we win them, and we get people put in jail, and we vindicate individuals' rights. But we also advocate publicly. We try to address some of the discrimination against women, not just in the justice system, but across society. And finally, we get information out so that members of Congress, and there's actually a bill in the U.S. Congress to support the rape prosecutions, but you also have international human rights organizations that are writing about it. And all this together changes the system that keeps women in Haiti unequal and prevents them from really realizing their full potential as family members, as workers, as students, and as political actors. We measure success through both quantitative and qualitative metrics. Quantitative, we use things like how many rape trials we brought in a year and how many we won. In 2012, we brought 7 cases and we won all 7. Or how many members of Congress have signed on to a letter. For instance, last year we had 105 members of the U.S. Congress on a sign-on letter for our cholera case. We also use qualitative metrics such as the quality of the training that our young lawyers are getting, the way that our cases are influencing discussions in the press, in Haitian Parliament, and in kitchen tables both in the U.S. and in Haiti. I think often people have trouble understanding the importance of using a legal approach to Haiti's problems of poverty and instability. If someone has cholera, for example, it's obviously very easy to understand why that person needs to get medical attention and perhaps needs clean water when they get back home so their family doesn't get sick. But the reality is that person's going to go back to the same conditions that made him sick the first time, and he's going to continue to get sick unless you change those underlying conditions. And what our approach does, it doesn't save anybody's life who has cholera, but what it's doing is it's changing the conditions that allow people to get cholera. So by filing lawsuits, we're forcing the United Nations to put in the clean water and sanitation that you need to stop cholera in Haiti, and also to improve treatment, not to help one particular person, but to help all of the people that are subject to cholera in Haiti. We've had the opportunity to have a lot of successes over the last 18 years. One of our biggest ones was winning the Rabateau massacre prosecution. We brought that one to trial in 2000, and it's considered the best human rights case ever in Haiti, and one of the most important human rights cases ever in the Americas. More recently, we won 7 cases out of the 7 cases we brought to trial for rape in 2012. We've also won some historic international precedent for women victims of rape, and also for people living in tent cities after the earthquake. One of the things we're most proud of is that we've trained dozens of Haitian lawyers who have gone on to careers in the nonprofit sector, but also in government service as prosecutors, as judges, as ministry officials, and they've taken what they've learned with us to make improvements throughout the system and advancing justice for the poor of Haiti. Our challenges and vulnerability include political instability in Haiti, and that causes 2 types of problems for us. First, just the fact of instability makes our kind of work more difficult, where it's hard to keep continuity. The other part is it actually adds threats to our staff and to our work. Some of our lawyers have received telephone death threats. We've had government harassment, and that has been difficult to persevere, but we found ways of continuing our work despite having some of those challenges. With additional resources, we do upgrades to both our program and the administrative support for that program. For program work, we'd like to increase our current caseload, so take more rape cases, help more people in tent cities, but also branch out into other areas that we're not getting to, especially landlord-tenant or labor rights. Administratively, we've always put most of our resources into program work, and we're a very strongly mission-based organization. That's allowed us to do a lot with little resources, but it's left us with an administrative platform that's too small to support our existing work. And so we're working on upgrading the structures, the financial and fundraising structures we need to adequately support our program work. If you look at places where the gaps are filled, it's usually because there's lots of organizations doing the work. You have some organizations doing homelessness, some working on hunger, some of them working on women's rights. And in Haiti, it's really just our partner, the Bureau des Avocats Internationaux, who's doing public interest legal work. What we would like to do to fill all of those gaps is to make the BAI an incubator so that we can spin off several other organizations to tackle some of those problems. And we think we have a great platform for that. Our legal training program is producing trained, idealistic, motivated lawyers, and we'd like to use that as a base for generating these other organizations that can carry on the work in areas that we can't get to.